Yo, what's up boys? Today is actually a Q&A on mostly Fortnite comp related questions, in which I got the questions from my Twitter, community Discord, or even my YouTube community post. Anyways, enjoy the video. Okay, the first question is, what is the best layer to have? High ground, low ground, or mid ground? By Leon on Twitter. And the answer to this question may seem obvious. It is obvious that high ground is always going to be the best layer. But obviously it's easy to say high ground is just the best layer and you should get high ground because only one team in the lobby is always going to have high ground, so it's going to be hard to get. But what I think you guys should do is either develop a playstyle to go for height or develop a playstyle to go for low ground in the in-game. And for both of them, usually you're going to be playing mid ground or second height until like second-ish moving zone, then you kind of start looking for height or low ground. So height is obviously best, but you really need to develop a playstyle that's either going to be you going for low ground or you going for high ground eventually. And mid ground is just like a fill layer to have to keep alive until you decide to go for low ground or high ground. And the next question on Twitter is by Cryptix, and he says, how to win off spawn as much as possible. And I think with off spawn, there's a couple things you need to prioritize that are really important, and one is mats, and one is height, and one is obviously loot and slash ammo. And then also prioritize positioning, because off spawn you always want to be looking for the opportunity to hit like a little 2v1 on someone because they're unexpecting it. Really good tip. Unfortunately for this tip you have to have a custom code on your account, but it is so important. If you don't have a custom code account, hypothetically you could accidentally, as a joke of course, bot an account to 1k followers, hypothetically, and that's a joke, Epic Games. And then you can get a custom code hypothetically as a joke, and yeah. But anyways, if you have a custom code, what I used to do a lot is I'll get another team that wants to practice off spawn, and then we'll go into a custom game, just them and us, so there's 4 people in the whole lobby, and then we'll have turns landing in each other's drops like game after game. So for example, we used to have one game land Synapse and then one game land like Rocky, for example, because the other team wants to practice Rocky. And then we'll just make some quick rules like don't go out of this area, or make sure the fight's like realistic. Like you don't want to just land and then AFK and try win as high as you can, because it's not going to be realistic for a game where you don't want to just grief and you want to actually play the game after off spawn. And also another thing you should definitely do is you want to name every single building at your drop spot and like all the little areas and stuff, so you have really good comms. And you can do this by just going into Fortnite GG and make sure the names of the buildings like kind of correlate to the actual building. So for example, at Rocky we used to do this, like this is obviously billboard. If you know Rocky, that's obviously a billboard. And then we used to call this building disco because it had a disco in it. And then we used to call this building arcade because it was arcade, it had arcade machines. And then we didn't know what to call this place, so we just called it back, which is fine because nothing else was called back. And then there's a caravan up here. We used to just call this caravan because people actually landed up there. And then we just used to call the middle. So go into Fortnite GG and then name every single little area in your map, and then just save that image with a snipping tool and give it to a teammate and learn those comms. And those comms will be really helpful to you when you're fighting. Because another thing you want to do for off spawn is when you're gliding in, you want to look around and make sure you know how many teams there are and where they're landing. So say you're coming from this side, gliding in, and you come in here and you're looking around, you're like, okay, there's one team and one of them is going disco, one of them is going back. And then because of those comms, you can be like, okay, I'll go billboard and you go arcade. And that's just really clear comms, and you know exactly what's going on. And you should also get a drop spot for like the main like priority place you want, like the most important place, which for us was the billboard. And you want to get a drop map for the billboard so you can get the best drops every time and get it. And then another thing you want to do for off spawn, and for example I'm in game now in Rocky in a custom match, and another thing you want to do is learn where the really fast mats are and how to get really good mats really quickly. And for Rocky it was like these little things, like the stairs and the platforms, they give pretty decent mats pretty quickly. And then there were like these trees and the rocks. We just learned like everything that will like give good mats and stuff, and then obviously learn where all the loot is so you can get really good loot and really good ammo. And then I say prioritize height, mats, and ammo because a lot of the time off spawn, the way you're gonna win is get height on someone, and then you have more mats than them, and then you have heaps of ammo. So they're on low ground and you're on high ground, and you can just keep spraying them until they have no mats, and then you win like that. You seem to win off spawn by one of three things. You have height, more mats, or more ammo than someone. That seems to be the way you always win your fights off spawn. Because mats and stuff are pretty rare and not of much quantity off spawn. And then another good tip as well is, like I said before, you need to be finding ways to quickly 1v2 with your teammate on an enemy, like without them expecting it, like as soon as possible, and catching them off guard. So with Rocky, what I used to do is we'd either, like, it'll be different depending on where the enemy lands. So if there's one team and they have one person land there and maybe one person land back, so one disco and one back, what we'd usually do is have one person there, me on billboard, and then we'd either have my teammate there, landing there, coming around with me, and then instantly keying this guy and catching him off guard, or we'd do it the other way around and go over there. Or as well, another thing we used to do is sometimes one of us claim back and then one of us claim billboard, and then what that does is it's usually splits up the team, like it makes one of them land there or one of them land there. Or sometimes we'd even do that, like we'd have one person land disco, one land arcade, and then since we're really split, and because of the strategy, what we do is we loot really quickly, and then we'd quickly catch them off guard and hit a 1v2 on them. And also as well, a good tip in like a really like over con game, like if you come into like a cash cup and you're conned by like heaps of teams, like 4 teams, what you want to do is just with your teammate, just pick one building and then go land it together instead of trying to claim 2 buildings. So yeah, those are some really good tips to win off spawns way more, but the questions are a bit tricky though, because like if you did want to win every single off spawn as likely as possible and often as possible, then you'll play really cringe and like make the fight go really slow and take forever and like grief both yourselves, and then you might win and just have a way more likely of you winning. But in like a non-set lobby style tournament, like a qualifier with 10 games in 3 hours, you don't want to do that, and you actually want to make your fights last like relatively quickly, not insanely quickly, but you want to like get on with your fights and make sure the fight doesn't last too long, because what's the point of making your fight last really long if the reason you're trying to win off spawn is so you can have a good game to make in-game? Like, you need to think about your future of the game and what your off spawn is going to make your rest of your game like. Like sometimes the other team might be playing really cringy, and then you're just going to be like, okay, we just have to cop having this disadvantage and just key them now, and then if we die we just get a new game. Because if we just keep playing like this and playing cringe, then we're just going to grief each other and then have a bad game for the rest of the game. So sometimes you just have to take the disadvantage so you can have the advantage in like your whole tournament, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, and then also one more tip. Every time you die off spawn, you really want to like keep chatting with your teammate about like different ideas and stuff of what you should have done or what you could do next time in the off spawn, instead of just being like, okay, that was bad RNG, or oh, I shouldn't have edited that or jumped down. Because every off spawn and every drop spot is so much different, so you really just need to keep watching your deaths off spawn and figure out like why and what you could do. Okay, the next question by Seldom on Twitter is, who was your best trio? And I know he wants to say him, but unfortunately it's not. I'd say the best trio I played with was, I forgot what season it was, but it was when I played with someone called Josh and Kazi. Funnily enough, it's like the season where we didn't even make grands, because I made grands like 4 times I think. But that's the season I haven't even made grands, but I think that was the best trio, like the best time for my skill or whatever. Like in the weekly qualifiers, that's like the best I've ever done. Like we're super consistent, and there was like one semi-qualifier that we had like the best average placement. We had trash kills, but that's besides the point. And then every other like qualifier in the weeks we were doing pretty good, and then the finals of each of them we were doing pretty decent. And we had like this uncon drop in finals. It wasn't good, it was like one of the worst drops on the map, but we had practiced it so much in CPL. And if you don't know what CPL is, that was just like the pro practice at the time. Like it just had like the top 100 best players in OC. and we practiced that drop so much there. So in the weekly qualifiers, we're doing pretty decent with Surge at like a terrible drop. But what happened is in the heats, we actually conned at caddy, and then it just went downhill from there. And then we didn't qualify to grands, and then yeah. And then the next question by Raiku on Twitter: how to maintain a good mentality throughout a whole tournament? And I think with this question, a lot of people try to chase just like a good answer that will solve their problem of bad mentality throughout a tournament like pretty quickly. But I think this, with a lot of other things, is just going to come down to practice and actually practicing that skill like a lot. And I think to fix this, even if you're doing bad in a tournament and you have no chance of qualing or doing anything good, you need to force yourself to play the rest of the tournament out and play every single game to end game instead of just keying. It's going to be really hard, but over time, as you do that more and more, it's going to become easier and easier, and your mentality will get better and better. Because some of the times you actually might clutch because you actually keep your mental together and then you play end game. And then in the future, subconsciously, when you're doing bad, you won't really get pissed as much because your subconscious remembers that you stayed calm and that made you do good again. And also you need to make sure your teammates are on the same page when it comes to improving your mentality in Fortnite, because if you have a teammate that's always pissed and stuff, even if you're trying your hardest to try improve your mentality, like their influence is just way too much. And the thing is, if your teammate is trying to improve their mentality and you're trying to improve your mentality and you both end up getting a good mentality, you keep like the influence of each other keeps bouncing off each other until like your mentality just becomes better and better, because both of you are like calm and chill and like you're being like, okay, we can still play these games out and still try. And then because of you bouncing your influence off each other, it just becomes really easy to keep a good mental. And the next question by Vujcich on Twitter is there a way to become pro in 2022? And I'll just start off by saying yes, it is definitely possible to become pro in 2022. As long as there's a substantial amount of money in Fortnite competitive, then there's always going to be a way to become pro. And I think there's going to be a good amount of money in Fortnite for like a long time, like years and years. Because the game's been pretty dry and stale for quite a while, and the game's still going relatively well and still a good amount of money in the game. It does also depend on your skill now, because if you're completely new to the game, it's gonna take like probably 3 years to become good. Again, it's just gonna come down to if you practice the right things, not just because you enjoy things, because you're bad at something and you want to practice it to make yourself better, and just being really efficient with your time and maybe putting in more time as well. But like, if you've been playing for a while and you're not that good and you still want to become pro, then you definitely need to make a significant change in your day-to-day routine of what you do. Because being a pro is really far away, and if you're not even close and been playing pretty consistently for years, then there's definitely a big thing you're doing wrong and you really need to significantly change it. And it might just be like your influence, who you're around, or it might just be like you just keep playing around and doing what you find fun instead of what's important to become good. Could be many factors, just try find that out and try make the significant change. Yo, thanks for making it through the whole video. If you actually enjoyed this video or you learnt heaps, then definitely click this video of mine on the screen right now, where I actually carry a subscriber in Contender League to almost win the tournament. Anyways, join the community Discord using the link in the description of this video if you want to be involved in any future videos or give me any YouTube ideas for series or videos. I'd find that very useful. I appreciate it a lot. Anyways, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Use code VJ. Goodbye.